Hello, so today I'm going to be recommending to you 10 books for the end of the year. When I think about the end of the year / beginning of the new year, I usually think of winter months. I think of something that's very atmospheric, something that I want to slow down with, and really something that's introspective, thought-provoking, something that I really want to take my time with. So that's what this list is going to be focused on. It's 10 recommendations, but really it's 9 plus 1 because the last one is going to be something that I haven't read yet, so I can't recommend, but I am going to read, so maybe you might want to read it with me. So getting into some good end of the year / beginning of the year recommendations, some good, slow down, thoughtful, atmospheric reads. We're starting with Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Really, I think that any Fredrik Backman book is good for this purpose. I think that A Man Called Ove or And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, any of these would really work because Backman has prose that is very thoughtful and intentional. He draws out the atmosphere in a way that's really unique to him in that he shines a light on the setting and how that tangles with what the characters are going through, but he also will incorporate the setting in that it elaborates as well. I'm specifically thinking of And Every Morning on the elaboration, but I think that's true for Beartown as well. This is set in a hockey town in the winter, so, you know, it fits for the purposes of this video, but also the setting of this winter town is a big factor in the way Backman draws out the feeling of this dying town and the desperation that the people are experiencing as the forest and the winter are taking over the town, but also losses and hardships are taking it over as well. So winning the small hockey town's success is really built up in the culture and the needs of this town, which contributes to how the town responds when one of the star hockey players rapes one of the girls that we're following in the story. So obviously, you know, very heavy topics, very heavy book, but also an incredibly close look into many different lives, into many different struggles that people are going through while they're wrestling with this life-altering thing that's happened. Some respond in a way that I would consider very noble, and some respond in a way that I would consider completely horrible. And we unpack all of that. It's a slow build-up, it's a slow burn, but it's also very, very thought-provoking, very, very atmospheric, set in a winter town. Perfect for this type of recommendation, I think. Next, I'm recommending The Machine Stops, which has nothing to do with winter whatsoever, but I do think that, as I said, thought-provoking stories are a big factor for this type of list for me. And The Machine Stops is a very short story. I don't even remember how many pages it was, but I can find out with a Google. 60 pages. It's 60 pages, but I think I spent 3 days reading it, which is ridiculous. I understand that. But it was so... the way it was written, every single sentence, every single description of how humanity had changed, what they had become dependent on, what they had rejected, all was so thoughtful that I needed to sit and think on and discuss every element of it. It was broken up into 3 sections, so I read 1 section a day and just discussed deeply as I went along. This is a sci-fi book. We follow people when they have become dependent on the machine. It meets all their needs, entertainment, nutrition, health, everything, and as well as their social engagement, as well as their education. Everything comes from the machine. With a push of a button, everything is provided for them. And the outside world becomes less and less needed and desired. And the story kicks off when the main person that we're following, her son, contacts her and wants her to leave the machine and wants her to come and visit him and see that everything isn't quite as it seems. And there's friction in her choosing to leave the machine. Why in the world would she do that? But then when she does, the way we engage with her thoughts as she's experiencing the world for the first time Oh, it's fascinating. The friend that I buddy read this with and discussed so much with, we still reference this all the time, and we read it a while back, but we'll just regularly throw out a no ideas here. I love this book. It was very thought-provoking, just very prophetic. You know, it was written 100 years ago and is very relevant today. Really recommend it. Next time I'm going to recommend Ishiguro. I think that he's a good author for this type of recommendation. He's a very slow storyteller, he's a very atmospheric storyteller, and he's a very thoughtful storyteller. Now, my favorite book of his is Clara and the Sun, which is a sci-fi, but I actually think that for this particular list, The Remains of the Day, I had to look again, I couldn't remember the title. The Remains of the Day, I think, is the best suited for this particular list. It's a story on reflection. It's a butler who goes on a holiday, he travels across the countryside, and as he's doing so, he's reflecting back on his life. His ambition, the pride that he takes in the work that he does well, his relationship with his father, his relationship with a coworker, his perception of his employer, and the way he views him versus the way his employer acted, and how his opinions changed over time. And not only is it a story of reflections, but also the reader is kind of forced to engage with those reflections and recognize where our main character is not entirely being truthful based off of narrative inconsistencies and based off of how his opinions shift depending on how people tell him or expect him to perceive things. It's a story that demands engagement, which I think Ishiguro's stories always do, but this one in particular I think really fits that feeling of just sitting down with a book and not expecting it to move extremely fast or to have explosions on every page, but just wanting to go through this process with the character. Clara and the Sun is my favorite Ishiguro though, so you should read that one too. Next time I'm going to recommend something that I just finished reading, and it's called Spinning Silver. Now, I have been told that this book has been on everybody's winter book list for all of eternity, and I just have been unaware. So I just finished this book. I loved it. It's very winter. It's very atmospheric. I think that actually the setting is a big part of what makes this book so fantastic. Hard winters, long-lasting winters, and we initially follow two girls who both come from very poor homes and who are struggling to get by. Our main character, Miriam, I've never said her name out loud, Miriam. Her father is a moneylender, and he doesn't want to force people to pay on their debts. But when the family is in such a desperate situation that her mother is near death, she ends up standing up and taking on the money lending business and starting to collect the debts herself. She goes from this very impoverished child who has been starving most of her life to someone who now she's become hardened, she's become resolved, and now she's come upon plenty of wealth because she's good at collecting on the debts owed them. But that doesn't result in goodness of character when it's unguided. She really needed some counsel, so instead she becomes quite selfish. We also follow Wanda, who also comes from a poor home as well as an abusive one, and Miriam ends up hiring Wanda as an extra set of hands on their property. Anyway, it doesn't matter. All that's all set up. There are the Starrick, which are these mythical fae-like creatures. Don't think romantasy fae, think classic fae, that are drawn to wealth. Therefore, Miriam's family comes into their path, and Miriam ends up going to the Stark land. And there's a lot more characters, there's a lot more plot that's happening, but think endless winter, main characters that have to fight for survival, incredible soft magic system, mystical world that is so magical in the way that it is told, that the magic and the world is a big part of what makes the story great. Excellently fleshed out characters, not perfectly good characters, morally, you know, they have their flaws, but excellently fleshed out characters, excellently fleshed out world, elusive magic and elusive magical creatures. Wonderful time. Incredible prose, by the way, as well. Just, I love this book. Okay, going outside of my comfort zone now, we're going to talk about two books that are in genres that I don't typically gravitate toward, but still enjoyed both of these books. We're starting with, do I still have this book? The Great Alone. This is a book set in Alaska, and it's following, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe it's following a family that just moved to Alaska right before winter hits. Bad idea. And they don't fully know how to bunker down as the natives of the area are used to doing. And so they receive help, they receive instruction, and then winter hits and they have to try to survive. Now, this is extremely atmospheric. It's very, the survival of winter is a big part of, especially the first, I would say 2/3 of the book. Now, full disclosure, I do think that it ended Hallmark. It ended pretty cheesy. For me, the ending of a book doesn't ruin all the pages that came before. So I do have to give it the caveat of, the ending didn't really satisfy. But the rest of the book, I think, was well worth it. When my dad read this, he said that it was one of his favorite books of all time. Now, he doesn't remember reading it. But, you know, that's where I get my memory. And if you feel like cozying up with an atmospheric read that's very character focused and that has kind of a dark, sinister world, I would definitely recommend The Tainted Cup for this. This begins with a tree that has sprouted out the chest of a victim who has died, and we follow the Sherlock and the Watson characters, Sarah and Din, I want to say. Google could help me with that too. Nope, her name is Anna, so first one's wrong. Din is correct though. Okay, so Anna and Din. Anna investigates all of her mysteries blindfolded. It's because there's, well, I guess technically we still don't know, but this is set in a world where a lot of the characters have augmentations. They have special abilities to help them with whatever they want to do in the world. And for Din, his augmentation is a perfect memory, which is a pretty troublesome thing as someone who investigates murder scenes, to never be able to forget. So there's a lot going on with Din. He's a character that's really, really easy to have a lot of compassion for and to just really want things to work out for. And then Anna is a hardened, you know, more difficult, I don't really care about being socially acceptable. I don't really care about, you know, making people like me. I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna demand what I need because we need to solve this mystery kind of person, and I love her. But the world and the setting are a big part of what makes these stories great for me. I think it's a big selling factor for me as a reader because I'm so fascinated by this world and by a lot of things that are being unveiled very slowly. They're not being presented to us right up front. So I'm continually intrigued about what exactly is happening here, far more so than the actual mystery plot. I'm interested in the characters and the setting more so. Okay, a quick short story recommendation, again, mostly for the setting, is going to be And Put Away Childish Things. If you really enjoy Narnia, this is a Narnia-esque story, told a little bit darker and with Tchaikovsky's own spin. Next, something that I think of when I consider winter months, when I consider the end of the year and just cozying up with books in the cold weather, I think about rereading an old favorite. Some easy examples for this would be The Shire. I always want to go back to The Lord of the Rings when comes winter. Narnia is an easy one to reach for. This year, I've actually just picked up Annihilation. The urge overtook me. The compulsion was too strong. Just as the biologist can't help herself from exploring the tower, so I too cannot stay away from Area X. I love Vandermeer's writing. I love the way that he just tells us little pieces of information that gives enough to continue on the story, but also not enough at all. And I wonder and I question, and as I'm rereading this, I'm not very far into my reread. As I'm rereading this, I have so many questions, even though I've read the sequels. I still am like, what does that mean? What does that imply? What if it had gone this way? What if they had changed this tiny little variable? Would everything have been different? I love this book so much. There is an area that's sprouted up. They call it Area X, that they sectioned off. No one can go near it because, you know, when they send expeditions in to try to to try to find out what it is and what's going on in Area X. Usually people either come back dead, very, very changed, or very sick. We are following the 12th expedition. There are 4 women on this team. Specifically, we're following the biologist the most closely. We're kind of in her head and seeing the world from her perspective, which is interesting because I think that everyone is having a different perspective as they're going through Area X. They're certainly having different experiences. Anyway, so Area X is this very elusive place. The map shows most of the area except for this one area that's not on the map. Most of the women are calling it a tunnel. Our biologist is calling it a tower that plunges into the earth. But she can't, even though that seems illogical, she can't stop thinking of it as a tower. They enter the tower, they find some things, they explore further, they find some more things. It's very unnerving and eerie. Not a lot, enough information is given to satisfy, but not near enough to satisfy. It's a little bit cosmic horror, it's Vandermeer, it's weird fiction, and it's one of my all-time favorite books. Another thing that I think of when I consider the colder months is classics. I think of really robust classics that I just want to sit with for a long time, like The Count of Monte Cristo. I really want to do a reread of that soon. I think of books like Du Maurier, who's very atmospheric, and she has such great mysteries like Rebecca or My Cousin Rachel. I think of Stefan Zweig, who I haven't thought about in months, but now I'm thinking about, and now I realize I really need to read more Zweig. I think about A Letter from an Unknown Woman, which was one of my all-time favorite books of last year, maybe even my favorite of last year. I'm not entirely sure, I can't remember, but at least top 3. I think of Jane Austen, that's this set just here with the girl on the spines. I think of Jane Austen, who always leaves me laughing and thinking, and she has these characters that are infuriating, but that are family. Of course, I think of A Christmas Carol, which just never gets old and is specifically, you know, Christmas themed. But I think the one that I'm going to recommend, I mean, I kind of just recommended all those, is going to be Little Women, just because this is the pinnacle, cozy, family feeling, emotional, gut-wrenching, but soul-satisfying story. Even though these editions specifically are kind of more autumnal feeling. Here's all 4 together. Maybe that'll make more sense why I feel that way. These feel, I mean, I actually haven't completed all of the books, but this book feels like the vibe that I'm talking about in this video. Okay, final recommendation is one that I haven't actually read, but that I'm going to be reading this winter. This was recommended to me by Jimmy Nuts and Andy Smith. I was watching one of Jimmy's live streams and Andy was guest. They were talking about Tolstoy. I told them, okay, it's time for me to start my Tolstoy journey. Where do I go? And they recommended me The Death of Ivan Ilyich. It's a very short book. I think it's something like 80 pages long. Alan from Library of Alexandria and I are supposed to be reading it together this December. I don't know a lot about it, and I honestly don't want to look it up. They said that if you're in the mood to reflect on death, it's a good one. So as I said, you know, introspective books are something that I think about, so it seems right. But anyway, I'll be reading that this December, so if you want to read it too, you know, it's on my list. Okay, so those are 10 books that I recommend to you. I might have gone a little bit beyond the 10 there at the end, but what are you gonna do? 10 books that I recommend to you for the end of the year, those cozy, cold month vibes where you just want to cozy up with a nice, slow, rich book that you want to sit with you for a while. Please do let me know what you would recommend in this category. Please chat with me more about, has my mic been in frame this whole time? Oh my goodness, it has been. That's someone else's fault. It can't be mine. Please please let me know what you would recommend for this category, for these books, for this type of book. Now I'm all frazzled. Thanks for watching. Chat with me more in the comments. I'll see you again soon.